For today's episode of Life in the Rift, we're going to explore the Los Lunas Mystery Rock. A few miles west of the New Mexico city of Los Lunas lies a controversial relic of the past. Carved on the side of an 80-ton boulder is a script of the Ten Commandments in Paleo-Hebrew. It was first recorded in the 1930s by Frank Hibben, an archeologist from the University of New Mexico, who claimed that his guide had seen the rock as a boy in the 1880s. The controversy stems from scientists who argue against pre-Columbian contact with Native Americans and who point out inconsistencies with the grammar and alphabet. It's generally accepted that the Mystery Rocks was a hoax perpetrated by members of the Mormon Battalion when they passed through New Mexico during the Mexican-American War. I actually have a hard time believing that some random people in the 1840s would have had the capabilities to pull off a hoax using ancient dead languages from halfway across the globe, and carving the inscription was a lot of work and not some casual graffiti. According to the Book of Mormon, in about 600 BC, Lehi was told by God to leave the Mideast and journey to what would become North America. There's a lot of theories and arguments about whether the Phoenicians discovered America 2,000 years before Columbus, which is almost certainly how Lehi and his family would have gotten here, since no one else was running the Mideast to America route in those days. Could a small group of people have followed the Rio Grande to the Rio Puerco and then stopped off on this hill, which has been used for thousands of years by native cultures also? The root of the controversy stems from modern scientists who claim that there was no pre-Columbian contact and that there's no archaeological record of Semitic people in the American Southwest. It should also be noted that, like any other humans, archaeologists have a tendency to find proof that supports what they want to believe, and a lot of the proof used to debunk the inscription is just as shaky as the theories of the inscription's origins. Cyrus Gordon, an American scholar of Near Eastern languages, claimed the Mystery Rock was a Samaritan mezuzah. Members of the Jewish faith keep a small scroll with verses from the Torah on their door frames. Samaritans would put the verses on a large slab at the entrance to their property. So it really comes down to what people choose to believe based on the little bits that we have left. The idea of a family of pre-Mormons traveling with a group of Samaritans who adopted a hilltop fort for a while is amusing, however unlikely. Regardless of all that, it's an interesting sight. I was there the first time in the late 90s and a few times since, most recently during the pandemic. I apparently lost the video I shot, but still have some of the photos. The Mystery Rock is carved on a volcanic basalt boulder about halfway up a steep ravine that leads to the top of a basin-shaped hill that is the eroded remnant of an extinct volcano. On top of the hill are the remnants of old foundation stones from buildings, some astrological markings, and there are defensive positions ringing the outside of the hill on every spot that people could climb up the side. Around the south side of the hill are numerous petroglyphs dating back thousands of years, so the site has been actively used for a long time. It's a moderate climb up through the ravine, and I've never been there when there weren't a lot of rattlesnakes, so I only go in the spring and fall now. There are 7 species of rattlesnake native to New Mexico, but fortunately only 6 of them live on Hidden Mountain. Unfortunately, my stubby-legged dog isn't built for the terrain, or I'd go get fresh video. The inscription is carved on the artificially sheared face of a lava ball that sits down in a watercourse underneath another large lava ball. Apparently the whole thing has shifted at some point because the inscription is at an angle. The top line was defaced in 2006. The inscription is part of the Decalogue, or Ten Commandments, written in Paleo-Hebrew. Paleo-Hebrew was used from about 1000 BC until the 2nd century AD. Scholars argue that the alphabet shows mixed characters and inaccurate punctuation, and I'm sure they're right. I see misspellings on the front of magazines in Barnes & Noble frequently, and I take those magazines less seriously also. Paleo-Hebrew is considered to be the script used to record the earliest versions of the Bible, and is very similar to the Samaritan script. Paleo-Hebrew and Phoenician alphabets are slight regional variants of the same script. Biblical Hebrew has been written with a number of different writing systems. From around the 12th century BC until the 6th century BC, the Hebrews used the Paleo-Hebrew alphabet. The Paleo-Hebrew alphabet was retained by the Samaritans, who still used the descendant Samaritan script. However, the Imperial Aramaic alphabet gradually displaced the Paleo-Hebrew alphabet, and Aramaic became the source for the modern Hebrew alphabet. When you climb up the ravine past the Mystery Rock, you'll find a variety of what can easily be foundation stones from previous walls and buildings, piles of rubble that could, maybe, have once been small structures, and a spot that may have been an astrological marker. It's not debatable whether humans have used this site for thousands of years. There's plenty of proof of that. The argument is about how unlikely it is for a group of travelers from the Mideast to have stopped off here at some point in the last 3,000 years. The top of the hill is a bowl-shaped remnant of the volcano's caldera. The bowl is ringed by rocky cliffs, and there are dugout areas reinforced with rocks at every place where humans can climb the outside of the hill, which to me were obvious defensive positions. The little hill was also known as Fortification Mesa, so apparently I'm not the first person to see it from that perspective. On the northeastern corner of the hilltop is what might have been an astrological marker, possibly for tracking the solstice and equinox. Once again, there's no way, at least from my research so far, to attribute the markers to a specific time period or culture, but I'm following up on it, and we'll have a later video about it just because it's an interesting feature. The site is covered in native petroglyphs, which are created by tapping rocks on the patina of the broken basalt lava balls. It's easy to see the difference between the petroglyphs and the clearly chiseled and frequently cleaned inscription on the Mystery Rock, so it's obvious that metal tools were used to make the inscription. The question for me is not the validity of the site, which will probably never be proven one way or the other, but whether it's possible for ancient people to have traveled to the Americas long before Columbus. We know, beyond a shadow of a doubt, that Columbus did not discover America, but that he was just one of the more recent explorers to wash up here. So the idea that there was no pre-Columbian contact has, in itself, already been debunked. As for archaeological proof of Semitic peoples in America, we may never find any, especially when there could only have been a few very isolated groups of travelers to start with. We don't always find a lot of archaeological evidence from cultures that we know for sure were here. The idea that small groups of Mideastern travelers might have followed the Rio Grande and then the Rio Puerco and stopped off at a convenient hill fort along the way is not as strange as a lot of concepts we take for granted in the modern world. The great thing about the Mystery Rock is the mystery itself. As for proof that Lehi and his family migrated through New Mexico, faith and proof are mutually exclusive concepts. If you have either one, then you don't need the other. These days you'll need a $35 permit to visit the site, and be sure to bring plenty of water and other necessities. The Los Lunas Mystery Rock is a fun day hike that lets you experience a little of the Indiana Jones style adventure that we all love. It's a hard enough hike to be an adventure, especially if you get snake bit and die, with genuine ancient ruins and petroglyphs, possible astrological markings, and an interesting view of the Manzano Mountains and the local volcanoes.